Just Baseball Show for Tuesday, April 2nd is presented by the fine folks at BetMGM. While we were sitting here, we watched Shota Imanaga kill the Colorado Rockies and a Little League home run. Wrigley looked awesome. We're going to get into the numbers behind Shota's start on Monday afternoon. We also want to circle back and hit the Marlins Pirates series because frankly, Peter and I didn't spend as much time on Jared Jones as I would like to, and we didn't spend much time on the Marlins, and Aram would love to get his Marlins thoughts out there. Notable debuts over the weekend. Also, AAA opening day and opening weekend is under our belts. We'll talk about that briefly. And then I want to pick Aram's brain on the best pitching performances of opening weekend. JB Show, Jack, Aram. How much fun was this weekend for you? I know you got back to New York on Thursday, so you flew Thursday afternoon, so you were probably just hanging out, feet up, having a good time, watching a ton of ball for the first 3-4 days of the baseball season.
It was nice, man. It was cool because we talked about in the call up, like there was a lot of AAA intrigue too. So I just felt like it was twofold where you have your general excitement and buzz around Major League opening day, and then you get Paul Skeens throwing, and then which we'll talk about. You called that game, and then you get Jack Leiter looking fantastic, and that was somebody that we highlighted during spring training about somebody that we were just hoping would keep building off of some of the momentum that he generated. He was great, and then you go to the big league side, and we got some really good matchups right out of the gate that you guys talked about in the last episode, and it was just kind of all of those things combining at the same time, kind of both worlds for me. All I needed was a couple AA games, and I think I would have felt really good. But overall, it was a blast, and there's nothing quite like opening weekend. I love that you have AAA kind of piggybacking off of that too.
Yeah, AA, high A, and low A all get going this coming Friday, so April 5th, before the total solar eclipse. By the way, Indy and the Path of Totality. I'm very excited for that. That'll be Monday, off day. I got to make sure I'm around for those 3 minutes and just like look up in the sky, and I need those glasses. I got to figure out a place to go get those glasses.
Don't be afraid to stare, even if it's not blocking it yet.
Raw dog the sun.
Apparently it's fine. It's no big deal as long as it's within the 5-minute window. Don't worry about it.
We saw a man in a position of power to do it too, so we're good on that front.
One of my favorite things of all time. I
That was
forgot about
hilarious.
that.
Just raw dog in the sun, man, at the White House.
Talk to me about. Don't stare at the sun for too long, especially look. They say the sun can be detrimental, especially when it can create some shadows by home plate. I mean, then forget it. Don't even try to hit.
Okay, so I don't want to start with that actually.
I know it was too easy though. We don't need to go there. That was a tease.
It was. That was a good tease.
No school.
Yeah, that's going to be second on our agenda here. It is 5-0 Cubs in the bottom of the 8th right now as we sit down to record at 4:45-ish on Monday. We do have Shota Imanaga's Major League debut in the books. Shota Imanaga, 92 pitches in his big league debut, 56 fastballs. He topped at 94. He sat 92.5. That splitter, 15 swings on 24 splitters, 12 whiffs on 15 swings. Shota Imanaga, we were finishing the call-up during the first couple innings, but I caught the middle innings and the rest of his start, and I was like, dude, he looks the part. You were praising him big time. If people don't know by now, what can they expect from Shota Imanaga, especially with Justin Steele out for about a month, probably?
Think about it's not quite as good from a shape perspective, but it's a little bit harder. So I think it's close enough. I think fastball wise, it's Nestor Cortez-esque. And then you have a demon splitter. And that's what Imanaga can bring. But then he also mixes in some other pitches that, aren't nearly as good, but you got a plus heater from a shape perspective. And then the splitter that's just going to dismantle hitters. And you have a fastball that really rides upwards and the splitter that dives off of that. So the vertical separation you have there is ridiculous. And I think part of the reason why he dominated to the degree that he did is just trying to confirm this. The Rockies started the season at home, right?
They started in Arizona.
Okay, so that doesn't support my case nearly as much. I was going to say, if they left from altitude where there's not as much of that vertical movement, I could understand how that would be even more of a shock for them. But now I think it's more of a testament to Imanaga there. He's a guy that can just attack the zone because you're going to get a lot of swings under the fastball, and then the splitter looks like the fastball until it's too late, and hitters are kind of geared up and cheating for it a bit more. I felt like he was feeding off of that Wrigley crowd, though. And that's what stood out to me. That crowd was electric for a day game on a Monday. Like, what in the world?
You
Boog
start
Shambi
drinking at 10
crushing
a.m.
the calls,
Oh
by the
yeah.
way. Oh man, that Morel, Little League home run, that was amazing. That call, but it just seems like baseball. We'll see how the team does. I think they're gonna be pretty good. But regardless, just baseball's thriving in Wrigley. I was gonna say Chicago, but in the north side of
Yeah.
Chicago, because I feel like there's at least enough buy-in from fans realizing, hey, the team's trying to win.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't get all the top free agents, they added guys.
Mhm.
Here was your guy throwing. You've got one of the best broadcasters in the game. So whether you're at the game, whether you're watching it, whether you're watching these players, how passionate they are, the vibes are just awesome in Wrigley right now.
They are phenomenal. They always are phenomenal for the home opener. I will say the reason Marcus Stroman was as good as he was in home openers, I think, is because of the environment. Like that guy fed off of that. And even somebody who's like a measured 30-year-old coming over from the NPB and Shota Imanaga, that's a guy that can feel the energy and can feel the positive vibe. Like that place is more of a vibe crowd than really any other in baseball. It's fun. And guess what? When the Cubs are bad, they still sell out because they have beer and you can sit outside and get a tan in Chicago. It's awesome. But when the Cubs are good, Cubs fans love their Chicago Cubs. They love them when they suck. But if
Mm-hmm.
you give them a product that they can get behind, they are going to support it till the absolute end. I think that, and it's funny because they're bitter rivals, but if I were to say, hey, these are the two fan bases that I would love to see everybody else in baseball replicate. It's the Chicago Cubs and the St. Louis Cardinals. They
Yeah.
love their baseball in those places.
Yeah. And in a different way, I think the Phillies, you
Mhm.
get, but like similar in that realm of just the passion, the knowledge, and just like getting behind these unique events where it's Imanaga making his, debut for them
Yeah.
at home and giving him that extra oomph. You could tell that there was a little bit more energy because of what was happening. And I feel like he fed off of it. And then the crowd was seeing him feed off of it. He was being emotional. And that was, I think, just further incentivizing the crowd to go crazy. But the thing that stands out to me with Imanaga is I had two concerns. Again, we talked about how good he is and why I thought he was one of the top free agents, and whether it's a guy that's already been in the big leagues or not, like must sign for anybody who needed pitching. Two questions were, can he keep the ball in the yard
Mhm.
because he's a high fastball ride guy? And can he fill up the zone enough? The command would get a little bit inconsistent at times, especially compared to a lot of the other Japanese pitchers that we've seen come over. In this start, of course, he keeps the ball in the yard, 2 hits and no home runs, but no walks. And
Yeah.
that's a huge key for me when I'm looking at Imanaga and the success is he's filling up the zone. He's got that zone confidence, 92 pitches, 65 strikes. Like that is a big key because he's going to give up some home runs here and there. Just
Yeah.
that's the nature of the way he pitches. But if it's a solo shot versus a 2 or 3 run shot, he's going to turn in some really good outings. And I think that's what you got to look at here with Imanaga. What a huge X factor he would be, especially on the heels of that Justin Steele injury. To have him pick up the slack there, absolutely massive.
So Anthony DeBundo, who I know you love, and I love, I think you're one of our Syracuse guys that did great
Mm-hmm.
stuff at the Action Network. I think he's still with the Action Network. Yeah, he is. He tweeted, Shota Imanaga with the wind blowing in at Wrigley is a pitching hack. And I'm with him. We have yet to see the warm weather wind blowing out start, and that is where my shoulders are going to tense a little bit with Imanaga. But this type of game, this type of game where you may have a swirling wind and it's cold and the hitters, they're bundled up and all that, this is when Imanaga has the chance to dominate, and he's dominating. I don't think we'll see a level of domination like this when it really warms up and it's summertime at Wrigley, but we could see a higher baseline with a very confident Shota Imanaga if he builds on a really solid front month or 6 weeks.
No, I think it's a great point. I mean, you had like a fly out to the track from Charlie Blackman, and
And that leaves in July.
yeah, and there's a little bit more zone confidence when you know that hey, if they square it up, it might not leave the yard. So again, don't get too ahead of yourself where it's like, oh, he's a frontline guy, he's better than Yamamoto. He's really darn good though. This was a perfect example of that. And there's going to be a lot of times where he's throwing in some pitcher friendly environments. That's where he's going to be a problem. But yeah, there were a couple fly balls that got to the track that I think on another day could sneak out. But again, they would have been solo shots, and he would have still given you 6 innings, 2-run ball, let's say, 9 Ks, no walks. You take that any day of the week. he's a huge part of this Cubs rotation with or without a healthy Steele. And they're going to need him to be more like a 2 or 3 if they're going to reach, the heights that I think Cubs fans are hoping for this year.
So on yesterday's show, I had Peter play the good company or bad company game where like you have a niche stat and you compare it to others that have accomplished said niche stat and you decide if they're in good company or in like so-so company. Doesn't really matter. It's purely coincidental. Like Jared Jones, who we're going to get to in a moment. Jared Jones had 22 swings and misses in his major league debut. That was the most in the history of pitch tracking, which is 2008. That's right ahead of Johnny Cueto, Alex Colomé, and Freddie Peralta in major league debuts. I think that's good company.
Good company. It's
Now,
good
this
company.
one, this from OptaStats. Shota Imanaga of the Cubs is the second pitcher in the modern era with 9 punchouts and no runs or walks allowed in his major league debut. He joins the Pirates' Nick Kingham on April 29th, 2018. Bad company.
Just tells you everything you need to know about small sample sizes.
Right.
And that's why we can't be too reactionary through a few games. But yeah, that's some interesting company.
I am going to be reactionary about Jared Jones. And we mentioned Jared Jones very briefly on Monday's Just Baseball show. I want to get a little bit deeper into the data, and that will blossom into more of a what are the Miami Marlins doing in their first 4 games of the season conversation. But highlighting Jones, if we want to play the small sample size theater game, I'm ready to crown this guy the Cy Young Rookie of the Year, MVP, everything. He's just a really fun watch, and I love watching him. I loved watching him last year. I love tuning into games in Altoona even before he got to Indianapolis, and I love that the baseball world knew that this could have came, and it did come. Was it against an anemic lineup this weekend? Yes, it was. But did he shove? Yes, he did.
It's a big league lineup at the end of the day, and there's some good hitters in that lineup. And even in a series where the Marlins got swept, they put some good ABs together. Like Jake Berger had some good ABs. Josh Chisholm had some good ABs. You got to go do it. And especially in your big league debut, I thought he was fantastic. And it was really cool to see him have so much confidence out there. They asked him before the game, like, what's your goal when you go out there? And he just said, for your big league debut. And he just said, shove. And that's exactly what he did. He's a top 50 prospect for us for good reason, because that fastball alone is going to give him a really high chance of getting big league outs no matter what role he's in. But I think what we saw in this first start here was he's got the slider. He mixed in a few changeups, which is all he really needs to do, and filled up the zone enough to where not only is this guy a big league starter, I think he's got middle rotation all over him. And as he develops, he's young. Remember, like he's just 22 years old. He could turn into a legitimate 2. I'll get into the pitch data when you want me to, but in terms of just what he did out there, it's a bully fastball that's going to work, I think, against just about anybody. And then having the confidence in that slider too, good luck. He's going to be a guy that even with 2 pitches is going to have success at the big league level.
I want you to get into the data in a moment, but before we do that, I wanted to ask you the frontline question because as of right now, I don't know if I see frontline guy in Jared Jones. But again, he's really young. It's really hard for me to label a 2-pitch pitcher as a frontline guy. And frankly, Strider didn't get that label from me until he finished second in Rookie of the Year voting. Like it was a middle rotation guy that was throwing really well. And then as soon as he hit the 100 inning mark of sheer dominance in his rookie year, I was like, okay, this is a frontline guy. When I think pitching prospect with frontline capabilities, I think of a Paul Skeens who pretty much has 6 pitches, who we're going to talk about. I think of a Jackson Jobe who can have a legitimate 4 or 5 pitch mix. I think of a Grayson Rodriguez who can have a legitimate 4 or 5 pitch mix. I think of those guys that are already advanced beyond their years. Jones is really good at the 2 things that he does, but he really only does 2 things. And that's why I hesitate to label him as frontline starter down the road. And that can absolutely change. I think it will change. I think he'll push himself to find a changeup or a split that works for him. Maybe he works that curveball back in. We'll see, but I need more pitches and I need more of a feel for an arsenal from him to label him frontline.
I think you can go give flashes of frontline when you're a 2-pitch guy like that. Look at Christian Javier. But there's just going to be too much volatility to be that bona fide ace. Where, I think to be a bona fide ace, you got to be able to change your looks second time, third time through the lineup. If one pitch isn't there, you got to be able to have another one. And the guys that are closer to the front line with two pitches, it's got to be 270 grade pitches,
Yeah.
and then it's got to be plus command. And Jones has a 70 grade fastball, I think a plus slider and above average command. And that's why I think he tracks closer to a mid rotation arm. But he did throw 5 changeups that were good. He threw 5 changeups for a strike. And that's something that could continue to develop.
Yeah.
That changeup develops and even into an average or above average pitch, and the command continues to track closer to above average, and all of a sudden we could be looking at a legit 2. But I think that's when people realize like aces don't come very often, and maybe sometimes one prospect in the entire top 100 projects as an ace. Top prospects turn into number 3s, and people are like, "Whoa, what do you mean he's a top prospect?" Number 3s are hard to find, man.
Yes.
Number 3s get paid hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not that easy. So I will say though, Jones, I feel really good about the floor because of those 2 pitches, and I think that changeup could come along enough.
Close your eyes, end of 2025, maybe All-Star break of 2025. The Pirates have an assortment of Mitch Keller, Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, Quinn Priester, Bubba Chandler, Anthony Solomito, Luis Ortiz. Oh my gosh.
That's
Thomas
not even,
Harrington.
yeah, I would say that's not even mentioning Thomas Harrington.
I mean, what
And
are
then
we
they have some
doing?
lower level guys who are aliens that could be
Gunsuck
really good.
Shim. What
Uh,
are we doing here? This is amazing. Pirates fans, you should be amped for what's to come. Marlins fans, you've got both hands on the panic button. The alarms are going off. What
yeah.
say you?
So real quick to wrap a bow on
Yeah.
Jared Jones, a foot more than the average extension, which is crazy when you're throwing 99.
And he's
He
6
averaged
foot.
97 in that start, but a
Yeah.
foot more extension than average when you're a short guy like that. Not short, but relatively for a
Yeah.
pitcher that gets 7.5 feet of extension. 5.4 foot release height. So to get that kind of extension and then a release height that's half a foot lower than average, like it's really hard to be low and out there, extended and low. So you're already creating an angle that hitters don't see very often. Then he has the velocity that's above average. Then he has the ride, right? The induced vertical break that is above average. So everything about his fastball is unique. Every characteristic that you look at is straying from the norm, and that's what you want in a fastball. So I mean, I think it's one of the stronger 70 grade fastballs that
Yeah.
you're going to find because of that. And then, of course, that slider just tunneling off of it with that downward bite is disgusting. So that third pitch coming along could be a major problem. I'm not faulting the Marlins for their struggles against Jared Jones.
No.
And I think any lineup would have struggled. First look, you don't have a lot of info. You're not going to be able to match that level of adrenaline and energy that he was coming with out there. And he just kind of overpowered them. I don't even have that much issue with the Marlins getting swept. And here's the thing. We've talked about this. Like, I don't care that much about the Marlins outcomes. I feel more for the Marlins fans, especially after hosting like Locked On Marlins before we were doing all this and just becoming further connected with the Marlins community there. Like the fans that are left, I feel really bad for them because they just put up with a lot. They're 0-4. It's a long season. They're going to be fine. What I had a problem with was the media circus that continues to be the Miami Marlins. They talk about like all, and I think Trevor Plouffe talked about this on, I think with
Was
Chris
it Talking
Rose.
Baseball or was
Yeah,
it Chris
I think it was
Rose?
with Chris
Got
Rose. Did a great job of breaking it down. And I tend to agree. And it comes, I think it holds more weight from him, given that he's, been in clubhouses and many of them. Avi Garcia coming out and saying, oh, the booze in my first at bat. What the heck? Look, I've never booed a player for performance. Maybe I did when I was like 12, Hanley Ramirez, after he kicked it down the line. That drove me nuts. And then he
If
walked
there's
after it.
one guy that's going to get booed,
They're not booing you for your first at bat because they hate you. They're booing you because you stunk for 2 years and you're one of the highest paid Marlins free agents in a long time. And not only that, there's a level of like lack of effort that you can just kind of see that you exude out there, whether it's playing defense, sometimes at the plate, running it down to first, and then the injuries. And I think some of the injuries could have been more preventable if you did a better job of taking care of your body. And there's been a lot of reports about like that side of things as well. But again, like you can't just go out and just say, oh, like I get it. It's hard. Fans don't realize how hard the game is from the stands, blah, 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 and complain about it. He homered. That was great. Go do that more. Like I feel for him. It sucks to get booed. I couldn't imagine what that's like. But at the same time, you got to kind of understand why fans are doing it. It's going to be 3 years now. I didn't have as much of a problem with that one as I did the Jazz Chisholm Shadows comment.
it's coming back, and I'll let you get into the shadows comment. Like I'll let you kind of lay the context for it, but it's really coming down to one guy. When you talk about the media circus, like Avi, Avi offered a little sprinkle of media conflict, but it is really centered around one guy in that Marlins clubhouse.
It's the guy that I have a feeling the Marlins are going to continue to rein in a little bit when it comes to like media appearances. And I've seen people say, well, he was asked about it. Well, what do you mean? Like, that's like saying you were double dog dared to do something. Like,
Yes.
players are going to be asked dumb questions or be teed up to say something that could be bad all the time.
You know what? Do the
All
Harper thing. That's a clown question, bro.
Yeah,
Do the
and you got
Harper thing.
you could say anything else, but blaming a 4-game sweep on the fact that, and this is what he literally said, and I quote, "We couldn't see. That's all. I feel like the shadows we're not used to playing in shadows. We normally play inside every day. You weren't playing inside in spring training. I understand that there may not have been shadows there, but you weren't playing inside every day. I had multiple players text me about this and say, like, this is the most, like, one of the more embarrassing things I've seen in a while. Jazz, you're so talented. So talented. Oh, it actually goes further. So when you're in the shadow for 3 or 4 games at home for the first time this season, it's kind of hard to adjust to. You know, we're used to the roof being closed and being able to see every at bat. It's kind of tough to see when it's black out there and you're facing a guy throwing 101, you know? Yes, I know. I'm sure the shadows
You
are
know?
really tough. But here's the thing. There aren't only shadows in the bottom half of the inning. There were shadows in the top half of the inning too. The Pirates were able to score. I understand shadows make it much harder to hit. It is well documented. That sucks. You can talk about that to yourselves in the clubhouse. You can even talk to team officials about maybe closing it more. I tend to love the roof being open. It's a much better experience for a baseball game. You didn't get swept because of the shadows. That's just not why you got swept. And even if you think that, it is so embarrassing to come out and say, and I think it's such a tough look. And I part of me admires Jazz Chisholm always just being honest and saying what he wants to say. But if you want to be this face of the franchise, this MLB the Show cover guy, this guy that is going to kind of transcend the Marlins franchise because of his recognition, you got to be a little bit better with the media, man. I mean, when's the last time you've seen a top player, a top player, come out and make comments like this? And he hasn't performed yet to be a top player, but he's talented enough to be that. This is not what you want to see. And I just think the Marlins have just started the year 0-4, but I also think they've started the year 0-3 now, 2 of them from Jazz, in terms of media and the things that they're doing there. I just really struggle with it. Just seems like every single day something else stupid's coming out and being said. And I can kind of understand now why the veterans were a little bit annoyed and kind of on top of the young guys last year, because I wonder how many things that they probably stopped from them saying to the media last year. Like, I just don't understand the lack of maturity that kind of comes from this team, and things that anybody who played the game would tell you. You just don't come out and say that, especially 4 games in.
So the excuse making brings me back to a rookie Strider. The first time he really faced adversity. You remember he had that blow up start against the Mets, and Strider, I've got this pulled up. He said, quote, "A lot of weird hits. They seem to be having a lot of luck right now offensively. That's great. It's August. We'll see what things are like in October."
And we clowned him for that.
We clowned him for that. And guess what? He hasn't really made excuses since then. He saw the blowback and he said, "I don't need to deal with this. I'm just going to be better." And that's a guy that, like, I think the reason we clowned Strider for that is because before that, he was labeled as the no excuse guy. It's like, yeah, I'm shorter than everybody else, but I work way harder than everybody else. He was doing that. He created the no excuse narrative for himself. And then in early August of 2022, he had all these excuses after he had a rough outing. And it's like, well, come on, man. Jazz is kind of that guy to me,
Yeah.
where it's like he brands himself as, hey,
I'm an
a
alien,
worker.
bro.
You're right. Like, I'm an alien. I can be a face of the franchise. And then you're saying you can't hit because of shadows. And it's like,
I didn't
come
know the
on.
only way. I didn't know the only way to defeat aliens were shadows.
Yeah, no, that's so when it happens in like 2053, I've got that circled on my iCal. When it happens in 2053, just like put your hand to the sun and see if you can like kind of melt them.
Yeah, or just go to home plate at Lone Depot midday. You'll be safe right there. Aliens can't handle it. I just, when you're that talented, he had a grand slam in the series. He could be a superstar. But if you can find me a superstar in the last several years who has come out and said, "Hey, the shadows bothered me.
Yeah.
That's why we lost," then I'll tip my cap, or I'll say that guy also is cut from the similar cloth. Last thing I'll say on it is, I can't emphasize this enough. The excuse drives me nuts because the other team had the shadows too. I would have loved if he just said, hey, half of our rotations, a majority of our rotations decimated. We know we're going to get stronger. We sucked and we're going to get better. This isn't our full team. That's fine. That's fine. But yeah, I just, when the other team has to put up with the same thing that you're complaining about, it's like saying it was too hot. It's the same thing as if you said, oh, it's so hard to play out there because it's so hot. It would be no different because it's hot for the other team too. But that's it for me on the Marlins front. I don't care that they're 0-4. Just be 0-4 with less media mishaps.
And a little bit more dignity maybe from your star player. We might be seeing some stars be born right now. I want to walk through 3 guys that made their debuts this past weekend that performed really well. Jackson Chourio of the Brewers was 5 for 12 in his first series as a Major League Baseball player. He had some quote unquote great catches. Like it was bad read, nice recovery. Wyatt Langford went 4 for 12 in his first 3 games. And Jung-Hoo Lee popped out his first homer. He had 4 hits in his first series too. So I kind of want to walk through those 3 guys semi-rapid fire. Let's start with Chourio. What do you expect from Jackson Chourio in 2024? Obviously, everybody sees, top 4 prospect in baseball wherever you slice it. Like, where does he fit in with Holiday, Langford, Caminero? I think what you're going to get from Chourio in 2024, from my perspective at least, is he's going to slap the ball around the yard. I don't know if the power is really going to be there. It helps that his home ballpark is Milwaukee, but I'm not sure that he gets to like 15, 20 home runs. I could see a guy that swipes a ton of bags, plays good defense and right, and can hit 280, but is not going to walk much.
I'm glad you brought that up, and I think you nailed it. Everything was kind of on the ground in that first series, but he can get away with it being on the ground because he's so fast and usually hits the ball hard. So he's going to be a high BABIP guy. You want to see somebody like him elevate more. And that was something that we had the Brewers hitting coordinator on the call up. And he talked about how Chourio really worked to elevate more and also just improving his pitch selection helped him do that. I think from a WAR perspective, people are going to look at his season at the end of the year. He's 20, by the way, just turned 20. And they're going to say, "Ooh, maybe we were wrong about Chourio because the defense might not grade out great. His reads are not good. It's a work in progress. He's really young. He's going to grade out price iffy and outs above average, but he's going to turn into a good defender. He's probably going to be volatile offensively because he's young and he puts the ball on the ground and he's aggressive. This is such a big year for him development wise to just get the reps. He's going to still be a good contributor to this team. I just think there's going to be some volatility. There's going to be some stretches where it's tough. And then some of those struggles may spill into the outfield. You're going to have to be patient if you're a Brewers fan. I would just say, don't really take anything too much one way or the other from Chourio in this first year because he's been fast tracked there. He's still never really put it all together in the minor leagues, but he's so talented that they said, "Hey, let's extend you and let's finish the the development at the big league level because you're good enough." Take it with a grain of salt. It's going to be a process. That said, I thought this was a perfect example of how he can still help his team win ball games. He's going to still put the ball on the ground, slap it over the yard, like he said. He's super fast, and he's just adds a dynamic aspect to the lineup. And maybe by the end of the year, he's starting to put it all together. And if the Brewers are in the hunt, that could be like an acquisition in itself, a potential superstar getting closer to that track.
Can I give you a stage of development comp? Like, it's not Jordan Walker because he and Jordan Walker are very different profiles, where Walker is, 45 homer potential, but he's a horrible defender in right field. I view Chourio's stage of development very similar to how I viewed Anthony Volpe last year, where Jordan Walker was getting Rookie of the Year love. Anthony Volpe never really got that. And I think that a lot of people, that are fans that are looking at Rookie of the Year lines are like, hey, how is Jackson Chourio not, one of the 2 or 3 leaders in the clubhouse for National League Rookie of the Year? Because he's not ready to be like a 4 or 5 win player in the big leagues. Anthony Volpe was not ready to be a star shortstop in the big leagues last year, but he's ready this year.
Yeah.
Because he got a full year in the major leagues under his belt last year. And, a lot of people are like, hey, was Anthony Volpe good or bad last year? He was 2020, won a Gold Glove, but hey, he hit 200. Anthony Volpe learned more about Anthony Volpe last year than he has at any point in his baseball career and probably his entire life. That's going to be Jackson Chorio's 2024.
And Volpe, I think you nailed that. Volpe's so talented too that even
It worked.
a not 100% finished product, Anthony Volpe, is still a positive asset at shortstop. Maybe not a World Series asset, but a positive asset. Same thing with Chorio. Even though it's still a work in development, he's still going to be a positive asset in the corner outfield while getting better. I think that's a perfect comp.
Finished product, maybe. Wyatt Langford has looked the part. He's never going to disappoint anyone ever, is he?
I mean, I'm waiting for that time to come. I don't know. Maybe the people that were hoping he'd be a catcher at University of Florida were disappointed. I think they got over that pretty quickly. When you're starting games as a designated hitter for the defending champs as a rookie with like barely any minor league games under your belt, it's a testament to how good you are. But then they put him out in left field. And I know his defense is a work in progress as well. That's the one part of his game I think that will continue to develop. Makes a nice grab out there. We saw the speed on the base paths with a triple. We saw a little bit of everything. We saw him hit the ball really hard. They moved him up to the 2 spot in that last game. Before we recorded this on the 31st. I mean, he just does it all. He is a guy that is ready to go. I mean, he's going to get better and better, but I think you're going to see closer to that finished product of what Langford can be already because he's hitting the ball hard. The swing is already there. He doesn't really need to change anything. The approach is already good. It's just going to be getting better and better in terms of experience and just understanding how people are going to pitch to you and improving the defense. But the fact that the defending champs get to add this guy and he's only going to get more comfortable as the year progresses, which is crazy because he already looks so comfortable. It is crazy what they've got going on in Texas, and Langford is a superstar. He really is.
Do you have home to third time for Wyatt Langford or like sprint speed? Because I went to Savant and I can't find sprint speed for 2024 yet. I guarantee you that home to third time was top of the line, like 60 run.
He's a 60 run. I've seen grades of like a 45. I've seen
Not a
he is a
45
plus
runner.
runner. I've seen it with my own eyes, and you can time it now on video. I don't have the sprint speed. His first hit was a legged out. Look at how fast he is type of situation there. He can motor. Don't get it twisted. He's a plus runner. I don't know why people have not why he's not a consensus plus runner. He's a plus runner, and that's just another aspect of his game that is crazy because nobody that fast or that big and that strong should be that fast. But here we are.
So I'm not doing it to him from a baseball perspective, but that sturdy, that fast, young Trout. Young Trout was like that. Middle linebacker build that motored. That's Langford.
I see a lot of Paul Goldschmidt too.
Yeah.
Goldschmidt could run. He still can kind of
He
run.
can,
That
yeah.
guy stole 20 plus bags
But
a few
he
times.
could really, really run. Yes.
If we had Savant, I don't know if we had Savant sprint speeds like at his peak, but I'm curious. Paul Goldschmidt is who I see. I see the baby Trout. I hate comping anybody to him.
Yeah. It's
I
unfair.
do see a lot of Goldschmidt there too, and that was the comp that I as much as I don't love comps, that's kind of what hit me when I was thinking about what the production could look like when it's all said and done, especially with the ability to draw walks as well.
2016, Paul Goldschmidt stole 32 bags.
Yeah.
That's the comp. And you did it in the write-up. And again, top 100 is clipped in the episode, or top 100 is linked in the episode description. But like 32 for 37 from Paul Goldschmidt, and he hit 24 homers that year. It's very similar in terms of what you can dream on with Wyatt Langford. So it is amazing. And holy shit, am I excited to watch him. I'm very interested in watching the San Francisco Giants for the next few weeks. And yesterday I really talked about Jordan Hicks. Like I'm super amped to watch Jordan Hicks's next start. But Jung Hoo Lee is another guy that I want to tune into consistently. That homer was great. He popped what a 110 in spring training.
Mm-hmm.
And you think that the difference in baseball, right, is going to be, a huge factor in him almost elevating his power numbers, elevating his EVs from the KBO. This guy is borderline electric already.
And doing the things, while doing the things that got him to where he is. Right? So he's tapping into more power and is a little bit more impactful, but he's still walking. He's still patient. You're seeing the speed. You're seeing the bat to ball. He's only struck out, I think, so far twice And I think the strikeout rate's going to dwindle as the year progresses. He's not putting the ball on the ground too much. He's elevating, in the right spots. And we talked about that. If you go and look at the YouTube breakdown that Will Cohen, our video editor
Yep.
extraordinaire, it was a blast putting that together with him. He did a great job editing it. And one of the things I tried to dive into was how he leverages his hitters counts to let it eat a little bit more. So even though he's contact oriented, when he feels good in an even or an advantage count, he's going to try to hunt and elevate, and his launch angle will just rise in those spots. His home run was in a 1-1 count, but you could tell he was seeing the ball well. They were up 2 runs, and he wanted to let it eat, and he got a pitch that he felt like he could crush. I think he was sitting breaking ball, and he hit it at 32-degree angle, 104.5 miles an hour. That is something that stands out. Yeah, the ball being a little bit harder. I think that's why it's hard to compare the batted ball data, because the KBO had their own change in baseballs that fluctuated the EVs. So when people are trying to like compare it to us on Kim, I'm like, I wouldn't do that, because I just from the swing alone, I'm seeing a little bit more impact here than I think people are giving him credit for. You mentioned the 110 in spring training. People were wondering if he had enough power. I'm seeing enough power now, and he's still going to make a ton of contact. He's going to walk. That defense is going to keep getting better in center field. If he's hitting 400+ foot home runs with everything else he's got going for him, he's going to be the rookie of the year in the National League, I think.
Dude, Yamamoto looked
It's
really.
going to be really close. It's going to be really, because of the preference to hitters. I
Yeah,
think Jung-Hoo Lee can make it really close, and I'm going to stick with my pick there. But
interesting.
Yamamoto looked awesome, sent with a 2-hour delay in between. I've never seen someone come
Yeah.
back, or an
How do
hour
you?
and a half. I don't know what it was. I've
I think
never
it was
seen
like
someone come back off a delay and keep going, but of course Yamamoto did.
that was crazy. Yeah, I could see that. My other like favorite thing about the Jung Hoo Lee thing was, did you see the beer shower video of him? He was
Mm-mm.
sitting. Oh, it was so. He was sitting in a shopping cart, and they asked, anything you want to say, and his translator said it to him, and he just extends his arm and goes, "I love you" to all of his new teammates, and then they come and they pour beer on him. It was very good, very
I
funny
love that.
video. By the way, surprise topic: A's option Esteori Ruiz to Las Vegas.
What?
They the move clears a 26-man roster spot for infielder Tyler Nevin, who was claimed off waivers from the Baltimore Orioles yesterday. Bladay's playing center. I guess they're happy with Bladay in center, but really?
I mean, Ruiz's defense, is not as good as it should be for a guy that's that fast.
What, like,
But I mean, I
you're
want to
the
see Ruiz
A's?
continue to get reps. This team. I know people just like to it's confirmation bias. A bunch of teams will make
Yeah.
decisions that just seem weird on the outside because we don't have the information on the inside, or have access to some of the things that they're looking at. In this instance, this is just classic. What the hell are the A's doing? Especially considering the fact that the last 2 games he had 3 hits. I understand that they're putting him in left now, and that might be where he's playing more of. But he has 3 hits in his last 2 games, batting leadoff with a pair of extra base hits, a triple and a double. I wonder if this is just a weird procedural thing and he'll be right back. And it might be because other players, they don't have as many options. Maybe they try to wheel a deal. Bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. And
That's
if he's
so
down in AAA for more than a week, he should file a grievance. I'm not kidding. He
yeah,
absolutely should.
that's so weird. I have no idea how to even comprehend this. Also, like, as this is happening, Robert Murray tweeting free agent pitcher Mike Clevenger and the White Sox are in agreement on a contract. And I'm like, okay.
No way.
Yeah,
Ha,
so Clevenger's back in
classic.
Chicago. Damn it. Wow. Yeah, that just kind of sent me in a tailspin for a minute, but wow. Interesting. Okay. Let's move on to your favorite pitching performances of the weekend. I just want to throw that broad canvas out there to you, and you tell me which ones that you love. So for me, off the dome, it was Bieber on opening night that I loved. It was my favorite pitching performance of the front weekend. I talked about that. Yamamoto was probably second for me. Hicks was third. There were a couple other guys like Brady Singer that made me just genuinely happy for Brady Singer. And then Logan Gilbert going 7 in his season debut was amazing. I'm curious if you had a certain start that you watched and you were like, yeah, I really enjoyed this from start to finish. I had a great time viewing this.
Well, my cop out is one that you watched as well. I loved watching Nick Lodolo in AAA. I
Uh-huh.
know that it's a big league question, but I just wanted to give that a shout.
Mm-hmm.
That stress reaction in his leg, like that was sketching me out. I'm like, what's the deal there?
Yeah.
But seeing him healthy and shoving, that he could be we talked to X factors. We didn't want to give an X factor to a guy that might not be on the active roster to start the year. He was great. If the Reds have him in the fold as well,
Mhm.
ooh, that could be really, really, really fun. So just a little AAA shout out there because I thought that was a kind of a nice surprise, right? Like, you were calling the game, you were prepared for it. Like, were you expecting that at all from Lodolo with the rust and everything? And what was the final stat line?
Not the slightest. I was not expecting it from Lodolo. The final line was good. I'll pull it up right now. But yeah, like to be honest, so it was to be announced in terms of the starting pitcher on Saturday. So I wake up on Sunday morning and I get, the text with the lineup card from the clubhouse, and it's Lodolo with two L's, by the way. The Louisville lineup card misspelled Nick Lodolo's name, which I thought was hilarious. But the final line on him: 5 innings, 2 hits, 1 run, 8 Ks, 3 walks. The walks came quickly. It was one of those where it was like, okay, a 5 pitch walk, then a 4 pitch walk, that kind of thing. But this dude, I mean, he was putting his fastball wherever he wanted it. And he looked like healthy Nick Lodolo that we fell in love with at the beginning of last year. And we're like, yeah, this guy is totally blossoming into that frontline person that we expect him to be. Then health struck. He's got frontline stuff. That's been clear for the better part of 2 years now. Like, he was a top 20 prospect in all of baseball.
Yeah. That's why I'm so excited. I would love to see the fully healthy, not fully, but as close to fully healthy as the Reds can be. Like, they deserve some good injury luck here, and Lodolo coming back. But on the big league side, we talked about Crochet. I'm sure you guys talked about that. Like, that was a lot of fun to watch. Freddie Peralta,
Yes.
this could be his year where I know he's had some amazing stretches, but this could be the year where it just all comes together. He was talk about fastballs with life. He was throwing, I mean, fastballs from that release height with that kind of ride, you just don't see often. Filling up the zone. It was 6 innings of 1 run ball. It was a solo shot. That was the only hit he gave up. A walk and 8 Ks. And then kind of speaking to the same topic of riding fastballs, I got to say Nick Pivetta looked really
Mm-hmm.
good for the Boston Red Sox.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the numbers over the last second half of last year and now spilling into the start of this year, Pavetta's fastball's got some good things going on. We know he's got the breaking ball, but for Pivetta to go 6 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, again, another guy that just got beat by the solo shot. It's a trend here with those ride fastball guys, but no walks, 10 Ks. I mean, the Red Sox need Pivetta in the worst way. And it was just nice to see him perform and be a guy that can maybe help them hang around a little bit more and be a bit more competitive with the pitching help that they need.
Cutter Crawford was awesome, man. Bayo was good. The Red Sox got a great opening weekend of starts, so I have to commend them for that. It was also opening weekend in AAA ball, and you just mentioned Lodolo on a rehab. We saw our guy Walker Buehler make a rehab start for OKC. He looked really sharp to the front, 2 or 3. I'm going to get to see Sonny Gray throw on Wednesday in Indianapolis, which would be very fun. So, like, John Means rehabbed. I mentioned it on the call up. It was somehow like way more rehab than usual, but AAA prospect laden, like you mentioned on the call up. Couple of guys that I wanted to shout out. I got to see Paul Skeens and Quinn Priester throw on back-to-back days. Quinn was amazing. 5 2/3, 1 hit, 1 run, punched out 9. Skeens went 9 up, 9 down, 5 Ks, 22 fastballs, 12 of which were 100 or harder. And then there were a couple other guys around the league that really shoved to Jack Leiter in particular.
We tried to tell you. We tried to tell you during spring training that Leiter was looking a little different, slower wind up, more under control. Fastball was jumping a bit more and getting more extension. And what does he do in his first outing? Piggybacks off, and he's going to start, but piggybacking off of Lorenzen, 5 innings of just disgusting ball. I think it was 9 Ks.
Yep.
And
9
the
Ks.
biggest thing was he would have went 5 shutty if it weren't for a friend of the program, Joey Loperfido, catching an 0-2 pitch for a 2-run shot. But to see Leiter filling up the zone, to see him have that confidence with the fastball, that was one of the more impressive, I think, AAA outings we saw so far. And it was fun just because, like we said before, there was a lot of pitchers with prospect intrigue that came out in the opening weekend and threw really well. But I wanted to just highlight Leiter because when he's landing the fastball for a strike, he threw 36 of them, 28 of them are strikes. he could be a big league starter and a good one when he's doing that. Slider was around the zone a ton too, and he mixed in enough, tertiary pitches to keep hitters off balance. It was really fun to see him punch out 9 and walk nobody. The other one was Mason Black,
Yep.
because you look at where the Giants are at. They have some pitching reinforcements coming. They have some other guys that I think could plug in and help, and they've got Kyle Harrison up there. But Black's going to throw innings for them one way or another. Season's a battle of attrition. He can get up there and maybe help them in a swingman role. He can get up there and plug into the rotation. He was really, really good in his first AAA start. He went 5 innings, a shutout ball, 4 hits, no walks, 5 Ks. And then the other Giant that was great was Carson Wisenhunt. And there was more to monitor there because of the arm issues, he's had, to see him both their velocity wise, and they're going to be a little bit more careful with him, just like we saw Skeens building up, and that's why he didn't throw a ton of pitches. And that's also a big reason why he's in AAA, to build up. He only threw 3 innings, Carson Wisenhunt did, but 3 innings, 1 hit, no runs, no walks, 6 Ks, 7 swinging strikes on the changeup when you only throw 44 pitches, another 5 swinging strikes on the fastball, average 94. If he's averaging 93 to 94, I know he needs to be stretched out further, but we also saw him towards the end of last year before going down with the injury, averaging 91, 92 in short spurts. It's great to see the velo back. It's great to see him around the zone like that. Wisenhunt, that's another guy that could help the Giants this year. That changeup is a big league plus pitch. Fastball would work. He could be another swingman type. Ultimately will be a big league starter, but could help them this year as well. They've got some reinforcements.
They 100% do. To wrap the show, I'm gonna throw you a couple of games that are going down tonight, and then I want to pose a question your way. Couple of games that intrigued the hell out of me tonight. The White Sox, actually. Garrett Crochet start 2 against the Atlanta Braves. How does Crochet look against a team that isn't the Tigers lineup? This is going to be very telling about how excited I get about Garrett Crochet. If he can handle Acuna and Olsen and Riley and Albies and Harris, and the list goes on, I will be all the way in on Garrett Crochet, the starting pitcher. Casey Mize makes his season debut in New York against the Mets. Casey Mize, Adrian Hauser. I've got a lot of credibility on the line here. Jose Barrios and Framber Valdez in Houston. I'm curious to see how Framber bounces back from 6 walks in his first start.
That was really discouraging,
Really
considering that was the exact issue we saw last year, and he still evaded runs because he's Framber. But man, that's the one thing he can't really be doing. I'm with you on the Crochet one. I think Mize is going to throw great. And I'm sure now that I said that, he's not going to, but I do think he's going to throw great. Crochet with the fastball slider, it's going to be just those 2 pitches that you're seeing. That does make me a little bit more concerned. And the way that the Braves are able to just stack righties, it could be tough. That said, he was filling up the zone with 75% strike, 76% strike rate with the fastball, 70% strike rate with the slider. I think he's going to be good, but I do think second, maybe third time, if they give him a third time through the lineup, they might start to get to him a little bit. I think he still battles and turns in a decent start, but I don't think it's going to be that overpowering dominance that we saw before. But I do think he's going to compete. I'm most fascinated by that one, and then I agree, Casey Mize is right there too.
Quick Mize thing, is it coincidence or is it divine intervention that when Mize is now healthy, Bailey Ober got bombed?
I was going to bring that up. And for those who don't know, like, you were gassing up Casey Mize, and I was like, I'm not liking it a couple years ago. And I was like, okay, let's make a bet. Who's like the most average pitcher I can pick that I could say will be better than Mize? At the time, it was before Bailey Ober even had the year that he had the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And so we picked Ober. We had a bet there, and I think both got hurt. I know Mize ended up, on the shelf, and then Ober ended up being on the shelf.
We had like a war bet. It was a war bet. It was an innings bet. Everything. They both got hurt.
They both had like 0. That said, like Ober, I'm buying the dip. Not even for the bit here. Like, I am buying the dip, but it is poetic justice for you that he comes out and gets shellacked. And Casey Mize now 2 years later looks nails. That's why I think he's going to shove against the Mets.
To start a regular season game. We'll see what he does tonight in Queens. You have one screen. Which game are you watching tonight? Late slate, identical first pitch time, 9:40 in Seattle. Shane Bieber against Luis Castillo. Or are you watching Yankees D-backs, Nestor Cortez versus Zach Gallen?
The first one. Shane Bieber. After what Bieber did in his first start, I will watch Bieber throw whenever. That's a guy I will endlessly root for. because of everything he's overcome injury wise and the way he's still able to get outs at a slightly subdued or sometimes very subdued velocity from what he used to be. I will watch him any day of the week. And then you got a pretty good arm on the other side too. So, and I just something about the Mariners, even though the offense always seems to let you down a little bit, I just love watching that team. There's so many hitters I'm interested in one way or another.
This is the question I want to wrap the show with. And let's not kick a gift horse in the mouth. Watch the next 2 days of baseball in Baltimore. The Royals are in Baltimore. So the question I pose to you, you're a GM. You get to pick from scratch. Every shortstop is on the board. Are Gunnar Henderson and Bobby Witt Jr. the top 2 shortstops on your big board?
You're building a franchise from scratch.
You're building a franchise from scratch. What other shortstop is getting in the way of Gunnar and Bobby Witt being 1 and 2? And they play each other the next 2 days. They played each other last night.
I'm going to think about this for 4 more seconds. I think
hey,
you can make the Corey Seager case.
Seager's 29. Gunnar and Witt are both 22, 23.
I think Seager's just young enough as a superstar where I would potentially make that case. I would probably
Lindor.
Lindor, you could make the case too, but he's over 30. He's 30. No, I think the answer is you're drafting those 2 guys. You're taking those 2 guys. I wouldn't blink at somebody taking Lindor or Seager because they still have, I think, 6 years of being among the best shortstops in the game, and then maybe another few of still being a really good big leaguer. But Bobby Witt, and assuming you're extending these guys, Bobby Witt and Gunnar Henderson, they could be the top, the top tandem of shortstops in the sport for 15 years now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a crazy thought. And I mean, we're seeing these guys already level up now. Gunner's defense is looking really good.
Oh my God. Oh my
Bobby
God.
Witt is just made for the way that the game is trending, where he's going to slug, but also the stolen bases are going to be a huge part of his game. The defense continues to get better. I mean, if you look at it from last year, Seager put up 6.1 WAR in 119 games, but Lindor, 160 games, he only edged Bobby Witt by 0.3 WAR, and he did play 2 more games, so you can almost call that a wash. And from a counting perspective, Bobby Witt did a lot of things better. That's crazy, but I agree. I think I'm going with those 2 above all. And I want to sell my Gunnar Henderson cards that I collected from when he was our #1 prospect.
No, man.
I can't. I can't because I think he's going to win MVPs. So normally I cash in. I'm not selling my Gunners.
They are so much fun. And like, hey, are you going to suffer through Alec Marsh against... You got Reagans and Burns on Wednesday afternoon. You have to watch Cole Reagans and Corbin Burns on Wednesday afternoon. But like, are you going to muscle up and watch Alec Marsh versus Cole Irvin? Probably, because you got the best 2 young shortstops in baseball. I'm going to muscle up and do it because it's Gunnar and Bobby Witt. And this is going to be a matchup that we circle for the foreseeable future.
Marsh has some loud stuff.
Yeah,
he might not have any idea where it's going.
Yeah.
He's got some loud stuff.
I hear you. All right. That was the Just Baseball show. Get your merch, get Arm's hat that he's got on. What do you have going on the bill of the hat? Is it like pine tar? Were you putting pine tar on your fingers and just kind of sticking it?
Yeah, I gotta be able to hold the mic. So I get some pine tar. I kind of rub it on the hat and just build that thing up.
RPM on the mic.
Yep. That's my, I can't really tell you what I do here. I can't give that away.
It's all about Vert, man. He's got the Coke boiling on the stovetop right now. We will talk to you tomorrow. We're doing this all 5 days a week. Remember, go listen to the call up if you want a deeper breakdown of the minor leagues right now. The Just Fantasy Baseball show is getting funnier and funnier each go around. Their draft episode was hilarious. So if you are a fantasy baseball player, go listen to Rami and Vince on the Just Fantasy Baseball show. We have a whole bunch of podcasts on our network, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.